Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be recommending you 5 of my favorite scientific and spiritual books. So there is no special order in which I'm going to be talking about them. I'm just going to present them to you and tell you the reasons why I recommend them. So the first book that I recommend is the book Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. This book was one of the first ones that I've read about more of the scientific explanations about all things more metaphysical or things more that are considered more spiritual. So in this book, Dr. Joe Dispenza shows us how we can break free from our self-imposed limitations and create our desired reality. So in this book, he explains in detail how we can do this, but also the science behind it. This is something that anyone can do, and he even shows us case studies of many people from many backgrounds that have been able to heal themselves, to manifest their greatest desires and accomplish the extraordinary. So anyone can benefit from this book and from these practices that he offers. So these are not overnight solutions. These practices require time and effort, will and determination, but he really shows how this is possible to anyone. What I like about this book is it's not only just an information guide, it really is a practical tool. So one of the things that he explains is how if we are not aware of our thoughts, we end up creating patterns or habits that we repeat every single day. And when we do this, it's not possible for us to create a new future because all we are creating is the same past. So if we continue to keep thinking automatically, then we are just creating a predictable future. So many times what we do is we desire something, we want something to be created, but then our thoughts don't match with what we want to create in the future. So he explains how we have to feel as if right now in the present moment, as if we already have the thing that we want, and think the way that we would think if we already had the things that we want, and to act and to walk, to talk in the way that we would if we were living the reality that we wanted to be living in. So he has around 8 meditations in this book, and he explains how you can do it. You can also go to his website and buy them if you want to listen to him and him guiding you through the meditations. But he really explains how his meditations are done and why he tells you to do certain things in the meditation. And the way that he explains things is really easy to understand because he's very thorough in his explanations. And again, he has these images and all of that, so it's not just words that he's explaining things. He also offers you a great deal of material to help you understand his practices. So if we feel and think and act in the same way that we would in the future or in the future that we want to create, then we are creating a frequency that matches that future that we want to create. And all of these potentials are already present in the field. In the quantum physics, it is called the 0-point field. So all of these potentials are already there. We just have to match the frequency in the present moment with what we want to create. And that is done by our emotions and also by how we think and how we act. He also talks about our chakra system and how that translates in the scientific world. He also talks about heart and brain coherence, and which I feel very interesting as well, because it really is about us creating more coherence in our energy and through our heart, which is the organ that has the largest magnetic field. And once we have a brain and heart coherence, we feel so much better physically, emotionally, and mentally, obviously. And our energetic field also creates a more coherent energy. And he talks about the Heart Math Institute in America, which has already studied how the more people are practicing this heart and mind coherence, then the more our world will also experience more coherence. So one of the meditations I like the most that he offers in this book is a mind movie meditation. So it's basically a meditation where you have your eyes open and you look to a screen where there has those kaleidoscope images, and then basically you collect a set of images that reflects your desired future. So for example, if you want more money, then you would have a collection of images of money, of the house that you would like, the car that you would like, and all of that stuff. And with the music that you like the most as well, so you can adapt these meditations and these videos towards what you would like to manifest. And what you're doing is basically you are looking at your desired future, and the kaleidoscope images kind of give you a sense of transcendence. And then when you put the images, and then when you see the images, it's like you're programming your mind to live in that future. It's almost like you're like looking into a crystal ball and seeing your future every single day. But obviously in the book, he explains all of these in much more detail. I really found this book very rich. I would recommend this book because it is a practical guide to breaking free from any kind of limitation and breaking free from the past, and mainly breaking free from anything that is already programmed in our mind and transforming that and breaking free from that in order for us to create a new programming of a future that we would like to attract. It is based on scientific research, which gives it much more validity, but at the same time it was really easy to understand. It provides with many techniques and meditations that really help you on your journey of self-transformation. It has many case studies that really show that everyone can do this. It links spirituality and science and proves that we are so much more powerful than we think, and we are capable of so much more that we can possibly imagine. So the second book that I recommend is Science and Spiritual Practices by Rupert Sheldrake. Rupert Sheldrake in this book talks about spiritual practices and how they benefit us, and the scientific studies that are behind these spiritual practices. Okay, all of them are practiced in all of religions, but they are also practiced independently without people being attached to any kind of religion. So they are meditation, the practice of gratitude, the practice of connecting with nature, with plants in specific, singing, chanting, certain rituals that link us to the past, and visiting holy places. So for each one of these practices, he shows the benefits, the scientific studies that already exist about them, and their history. Okay, so it really is, it's almost like you really dive into each of these practices in a complete way. And he also shows 2 ways that you can practice them in the end of each chapter. What I found really interesting in this book is the author's perspective about science. Science for a long time criticized religion or science or spirituality in the sense of just being a belief system and nothing else. Nothing based on facts, just a belief system. But the author's perspective as a scientist, he sees that science itself has become a system of beliefs, in the sense that anything new to what they think that has been proven is seen as not possible. So it's like there's this calling for science to be more open, and to be not as absolute. So more specifically, he talks about the materialistic perspective that for centuries have been ruling our world and our perspective on our world and our lives and all living beings. But more and more, we are proven to be much more than just the materialistic perspective that has been dominating not only the scientific world, but also the rest of our perspective on lives, because we trust in science, we trust in what science tells us, and obviously science has brought so many good things into our lives, but it's just required to, it's just that there's a requirement for science to be more open to new perspectives and to new understandings of our world. Rupert Sheldrake has he explains more about that scientific perspective in his book Science Delusion, which in America is called Science Set Free. So if that is something that you're more interested in, I would recommend that book as well. And the third book that I recommend is The Awakened Brain by Lisa Miller. She's a psychologist, and this book was really interesting to read because I'm really always been really fascinated by psychology, and she explains almost like in a kind of like reading a storybook. First of all, her writing is amazing, and it feels like you are living and going through her life as a psychologist, as a student of psychology, and then later on in her studies. And it's really interesting to see her experiences and what molded her into studying the benefits of spirituality on someone, especially someone with depression. And her studies really have shown that, not only her studies, but many others that she talks about as well in this book, how spirituality is almost like a protective shield against depression. And it's even like her own journey of being taken seriously as well when she started studying about spirituality, and even the findings, like the results that she had in her studies and experiments. She even explains how you can see that, so it's reflected in physically in the brain, how being more spiritual protects you from depression and addictive behaviors and such. So again, this book really shows her story, and she explains it in such a wonderful way that it's really easy and quick to read. And she also shows stories about her patients, and in this book she also talks about 2 modes of awareness that we can choose from, and that in perfect balance they are extremely healthy for us. So one of them is achieving awareness, and the second one is awakened awareness, the achieving awareness is more about logic and rationality and achieving things, having that specific determination to follow our goals. And also our awakened awareness, which is about more of our spiritual side and allowing things to flow and surrendering and being more aware of our connection with the world and our connection with spirituality. So both of them are necessary in a balanced way to achieve a healthy mindset and a healthy way of life. And this book offers you a new perspective of how science and spirituality can be linked through the brain and through our mental health as well. So very, very interesting to read the benefits of spirituality on our health and well-being. The fourth book is Why Woo Woo Works from David Hamilton, and I enjoyed this book so much. This book talks about the science behind some spiritual practices, complementary therapies, and even some more esoteric subjects. So in this book, he talks about the scientific practices like meditation, prayer, and connecting with nature. Also a little bit like Rupert Sheldrake, but then he talked about Reiki and how the scientific studies behind Reiki and distant healing and crystals and even EFT, law of attraction as well, and even our consciousness, what studies we already have about that. And it's really interesting, especially for me as a Reiki and EFT practitioner. It's really interesting to see the science behind it. EFT, I already had researched and studied a lot about the science behind it, but Reiki, I haven't really honestly seen much about it. So it's really interesting to see. It's really interesting to read. It's almost like this book has more of it's much more broad in the sense of it explores many subjects that are very much linked to pseudoscience or the woo-woo, and it really shows that sometimes we think that way because we don't really know and we don't have all of the information. And the truth is, most of these are already scientifically studied, and they have been proven their benefits, okay? So for anyone who is interested in more of this scientific side of spiritual practices, complementary therapies, or even more esoteric subjects like law of attraction, consciousness, and even he talks about a lot about the placebo effect and visualization, and that reality really depends on our perspectives. So again, it's a really interesting and engaging book because it doesn't really stay too long in a subject. It goes right to the core of the subjects and what you really need to know. He also explains how to perform some of these practices like meditation. He talks about many kinds of meditation. He also gives his own perspective, which I actually appreciate because he seems very honest, and it's almost like you're talking to a friend very casually about these subjects, and at the same time you're learning so much. So I really do recommend this book. Again, very easy to read. Seems big, but it really is very engaging and very easy to follow. So our fifth book is The Field from Lynne McTaggart. I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right, so I apologize. But this book is it's a extraordinary book. Like scientifically, this is probably the most scientific book from all of these ones, although she is not a scientist. The only author that I have here that is not a scientist, she's a journalist, and she set herself to look for what studies were out there about consciousness and spirituality and our human nature. And what she found is astonishing, to be honest. And we're not really following her perspective. We are following the stories of each of the scientists that had these discoveries. And it's very interesting to see like their ups and downs, and especially with all of these books, what I found in common with all of these books is all of these scientists that have tried to show the world this new perspective and all these things that that religion and spiritual masters have told us for many centuries, that science is starting to prove it. But what they had to go through, what these scientists had to go through in this scientific community especially, was kind of shocking. So all of these scientists really had to be very courageous to not only study these subjects, but also to defend them, to defend their results. This book is much more detailed, so the scientific studies that are shown here are much more detailed. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to follow, especially for someone that doesn't have the scientific basis of these terms and all of that, but it really is, it tends to become easier, especially every conclusion of the studies is really easy to follow. But the interesting thing is it really is almost like you are reading about the story of the scientists, and not only the results, and all the twists and turns of their journey. So for me, all of these books are doors that really open our minds, especially for those who are more logical, rational, or even skeptical about spirituality or complementary therapies. Some even considered pseudoscience, and see that finally science has really stepped up and actually proved that many, like I said before, many religious texts, ancient texts and spiritual masters have told us for centuries, and science is now proving them right. Most of these studies aren't commonly known and really not widespread, but I believe that in time more and more people will start having access to these studies, and these books are a gateway for that. We now know scientifically that we have abilities and influence beyond our belief, and we are not a product of random survivalist evolution, but we are a result of a intelligent, purposeful, coherent, infinite and higher collective consciousness. So whether you want to call it God, Goddess, divine, spirit, unified field, or simply the field, is up to you. But it is now undeniable that we are truly part of something greater, much more profound than we thought and maybe believed in. So I hope you liked these videos. If you are interested in any of these books, I do have direct links to purchase them down below in the description box. If you have read them, please let me know your thoughts about them, about these books, and please support the channel by liking or subscribing. Have a wonderful day and see you in the next video. Bye.